It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hi, everybody, and happy Wednesday, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk. He is Paul Dottino. Get on the phones. Give us a call, 201-939-4513. We'll wrap up everything going on with the Lions. We'll talk a little bit about the game tomorrow night. But a big part of our open, the Giants released their first unofficial team depth chart. That's up on Giants.com. Go check it out. And we'll break that down a little bit, see what we see, if there's anything interesting that we could talk about. It is important to stress, though, Paul, this is not the internal coaches depth chart. This is one that they released to the public just for the use for broadcast preparations for the first preseason game.
Correct.
So keep all those caveats in mind as we discuss what this depth chart looks like.
That's why it's so important you said unofficial, because that's with a capital U. It is as unofficial as it can get.
Yes. So honestly, and this is a question that is going to be on Fact or Fiction on Giants.com, which I'm not sure if it's up yet. And the statement Dan proffered was there were no surprises on the Giants' unofficial depth chart. And I got to be honest, I put fact. There was nothing on this unofficial depth chart to me, Paul, that really surprised me, that I was like, that's weird. Or, wow, I can't believe that. Nothing really, I got to be honest.
Okay.
Nothing really jumped out at me as all that surprising. I'm curious to see what you think.
Well, I totally concur with you, but let's not kid ourselves. As you said, the Public Relations Department does this more for procedure purposes to help the media identify players. They don't consult with the coaches, and nothing on this depth chart is official. So basically, the PR people who work here are watching the same practices we're watching, and they're basically saying, okay, so-and-so's taking a bunch of reps there. All right, let's just slot him in there at that spot. And so I don't think by the very nature of how this thing is produced that we should see any surprises, right?
Now, I will say I think there were some things that I would term to be interesting or noteworthy, even if they're not surprises. So why don't we go through a couple of those here, Paul? One, and again, I think it's not a surprise because watching practice, I think this makes sense. They basically have Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton both listed as your first team. I guess that would be the Z wide receiver. Next to Wan'Dale Robinson, who's the number one slot, and Malik Neighbors, who's the X receiver on this list. And given how we think this is going to go, Paul, and how they do have some level of overlapping skill sets, Hyatt and Slayton, it does not surprise me to see them as the two guys that would be considered co-starters. And we talked about how they were going to distribute snaps at the wide receiver position during the year. And I think both of us thought that Robinson wasn't going to get really touched in the slot much. He was going to be in there most of the time. Lord knows they're not taking Neighbors off the field. So I think it makes sense for those two guys to be, sharing that Z wide receiver spot.
I totally concur. And I think I'm going to give you an example of something. I'm not going to mention the player because I don't want to do that. But several years ago, when these depth charts started coming out, and it got to the point where egos started to get involved. And sometimes players have ego-driven emotions. And I can remember, and again, I'm not going to name the player.
Oh, by the way, just for the record, these players want to know where they stand too.
Oh,
so
sure.
If they see, there's a depth chart on the website, I want to see where I stand.
And they don't know that the coaches are not doing the depth chart.
Correct.
And they're unaware of the mechanics of how it works. So they see the depth chart. And John's absolutely right, especially a guy who may be fighting for a backup job. And he looks and he sees on this unofficial depth chart, all of a sudden he's like the fifth receiver or whatever the case may be. Well, I knew one time of a player who was very angry. He let his ego get in the way and he got very angry. And he's like, I don't understand. And we went up to a coach and said, why am I like third string on the depth chart? And the coach said to him, whoa, what are you talking about? Because the coaches don't even see it. They don't even know what it is. And they're like, no, you don't understand. We had nothing to do with this. So don't read anything into it. Calm down. And so I think that's why the public relations department, when they put these things out, John, and even on the team websites, they put that word unofficial right in the front, because it's not just so that the public doesn't get duped into thinking it's real, but it's also some of the players or the agents that don't want to believe something that is actually not necessarily true.
So a couple other things I'll just throw out there so fans know what's on there. Wanda Robinson is the number 1 slot. Isaiah McKenzie is second there. Gunnar Olszewski is third, and the undrafted rookie Aira Asante is fourth there. Not a surprise. Miles Boykin, he's technically the second string receiver behind Hyatt and Slayton, but given there's 2 guys ahead of him, he's really the third guy, even though he's listed as 2, which lines up exactly where Allen Robinson is behind Malik Neighbors. Isaiah Hodgins is the primary backup behind Neighbors. I'm not surprised. That's exactly where I thought those guys would be. And then you have the younger guys, Bryce Ford-Wheaton, John Giles. Those are the guys standing towards the back of that wide receiver depth chart.
See, now, and I'm curious what you have down in your notes for the camp so far.
Yeah.
I think Dennis Houston has been a very productive, deep depth chart wide receiver, and quite frankly, as part of the regular offensive sets, been more productive than Miles Boykin.
Yeah, he and Bryce Ford-Wheaton, they're the fourth guys at the 2 outside wide receiver spots. And I agree. I think Dennis Houston probably has been, of the non-primary wide receivers, and maybe you could throw Isaiah Hodgins in that conversation too, just consistently getting open and catching the football. He's been pretty good. He's been pretty consistent. Nothing spectacular where he's running by people and getting over the top and making these huge plays, but short, intermediate range, that dude gets open and that dude catches the football.
Would you buy the terms steady and reliable?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
So
you're saying he might be smart, tough, and dependable?
Good line, John. So if you really wanted me to look for a surprise, I suppose the fact that he's behind Boykin on this list, that would be something just based on the eye test, where you would say to yourself, well, I think he probably could have been a spot higher.
And again, you see Boykin and Robinson lined up. Those guys are more veteran than Bryce Ford-Wheaton and Dennis Houston. So that just might be also a tip cap to the vets. We'll have them ahead of the younger guys on the unofficial depth chart because they've earned it, because they're veterans and they've been in the league for a while. At running back, we'll go there next. Devin Singletary, no surprise, the 1. And then, again, I wouldn't take too much out of this, but they have the running backs listed as Gray 2, Tracy 3, Miller 4, and Salyers 5th on the running back depth chart there. And again, I wouldn't take too much out of that. Gray's just been here another year. Tracy's a rookie, and of course, Singletary is the 1. And then at tight end, Daniel Bellinger is listed as number 1. Not a surprise. Lawrence Cager right now is dealing with a hamstring injury, I believe it is, right? He's number 2. Chris Manhertz is 3rd, the big blocker. Theo Johnson 4th, and then Jack Stoll and Tyree Jackson behind Theo Johnson. Your thoughts on running back and tight end?
Well, I think we have also commented on the shows that we've done together that Tyrone Tracy has shown a lot of flashes at running back.
And Miller's speed has popped too.
And you can't ignore that. You can't.
Gray has been great the last week or so. I think Gray's had better practices. Correct.
Totally concur with you. He has been on the upswing, but as of a week ago, I thought that Gray was maybe the 3rd or even potentially 4th most impressive and productive running back. Gray has made a move lately, but for him to be number 2 on this chart, that would be something that would scratch my head. But again, the PR department, they're looking at the number of snaps, and they're probably saying, well, he's been on the field more. And that's probably why they put him. Plus, he's a holdover.
And they really
he's
are.
A holdover.
Yes, correct. And to me, and then I'll let you comment on the tight ends. They basically, the non-Singletary reps,
they split them.
It's really been evenly split. So I really think that's a wide open competition. So.
Sure. Cager, again, he's been here. So he's an incumbent, and I'm sure that's why they listed him there, because the old adage, you can't lose a job due to injury. PR is probably going by that adage when they put him there.
In passing situations, he was with the ones a lot.
And he was until he got hurt.
Right.
And as it stands now, I think the interesting part is, since Cager went out, I think we would both agree, Theo Johnson has certainly stepped up his game in the pass game.
Yeah, he's caught a couple passes. He hasn't
been spectacular.
Against the Lions, he only had a couple catches over.
But he's done everything they've asked him to do.
Sure.
He hasn't failed. He hasn't dropped anything. He hasn't looked bad out there.
I don't think he's passing Daniel Bellinger though anytime.
Oh no, not at all. I don't
say
that at all. But to this point, while Cage has been out, Johnson to me has assumed the number 2 role, I think, based on what I've seen.
Yeah, I would say that. I still think Manhurts would be their blocking tight end, though, in situations. So
no, well, he's a big man. Oh, boy, is he big.
And that's why they brought him in, right?
Yep.
All right, on the offensive line, going right to left, this is how they have him listed. Jermaine Illuminor, right tackle. Aaron Stinney, right guard. John Michael Schmidt, center. John Runyon now at left guard. That's where he's been working at more recently in practice. Obviously, he spent the spring working at right guard. And then Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Again, they want these guys to back up multiple positions. So I would, take with a grain of salt where the backups are listed in terms of spot. Zudu, right tackle. Van Roten, right guard. Of course, he's been the starting center with John Michael Schmidt's hurt with that shoulder. Jimmy Morrissey, the backup center. Ahead of Schlotman, which I guess is a little interesting. Jalen Mayfield at left guard. Yannick Kajus at left tackle. And then Joshua Miles, third string right tackle. Jake Kubas, right guard. Schlotman, center. Marcellus Johnson, who came in as a tackle. They're using him at a guard in camp this year. At left guard, Matt Nelson at left tackle. Then Marcus McKeithen sitting back there at fourth string.
Yeah, and quite honestly, over the last few days, we've seen Van Roten take so many center snaps that would it surprise you if he starts at center against Detroit on tomorrow night?
Well, and I'll say it's interesting now, too. Does that, with Van Roten here being able to be the backup center, John Runyon has taken some emergency center snaps as well. Does that mean there's a chance that neither Morrissey nor Schlotman are on the final 53?
That could be a place where you steal a spot.
Right.
I think that's a great thought. I really do. And especially when you consider they may need to steal a spot for one of the tackles. They may need to steal a spot for a third quarterback if they want to keep one. They may need to steal a spot for an extra receiver if they decide they want to go there. Or how about a corner?
Or fourth tight end, Paul.
Absolutely. You could. So, if you're looking for some place to steal, John, you make a great point. That backup center spot could be a really good soft spot to steal a spot.
And I'll be honest, of the backup offensive tackles, Paul, once you get past Illuminor and Andrew Thomas, I think Joshua Miles has been the best guy. I think he's had some really nice reps over the past couple weeks. If you ask me right now, one of those guys that gets hurt, who's the guy based on what I've seen in practice I have the most confidence putting in there to pass protect on a third down situation? For me, it's Joshua Miles. The coaches might not feel that way. I don't know how they think, but from what I've seen, that's my opinion.
Well, you know what? He's done more and more in that spot recently when Azudu had some of his issues and he had gotten dinged up. And then he had gotten dehydrated the other day and had to come out and missed practice. Miles has had more and more reps out there. I will say this. He's definitely ahead of Matt Nelson on my book. I agree with that.
He's got good feet, man. He moves his feet really, really well.
I don't know how I feel about him overall going into opening day. I suspect they probably still would put Azudo out there first. I think they would.
Well, based on what we've seen in camp, it appears that's the case.
I think so. But I don't think the Zudu would have a very long leash.
Well, look, that's the importance of the preseason games now, right? I don't think, and we'll know more tomorrow when you're hosting with Matthew Sytak, maybe in terms of who's going to play. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Who knows? But I don't think we're going to see many starters, Paul. On Thursday night.
Probably not.
Because of how many competitive reps they had in practice. That's how they handled it last year. So if they handle it the same way again this year, this is going to be a lot of snaps for those second and third string offensive linemen, and how they play in these games is going to help determine what guys are on this final 53-man roster. It's hugely important for these offensive linemen to do well in their snaps in these preseason games.
Yeah, the shame of it is, and you know my feeling about trying to get 5 and then trying to get them some work. I think it's a shame that the Giants have had some issues with the injuries already. Obviously, Evan Neal is still nowhere near ready. We've seen him on the side with the trainers. He was jogging, I think, the other day, and then he came out to the field again yesterday. But he's really doesn't appear like he's going to be putting pads on anytime in the next couple of days. So, that situation, it's getting to the point where as the clock ticks, more and more you have to think Illuminor is kind of putting his foothold onto the right tackle spot.
Yeah, and I've been very effusive in my praise. I think Stinney's done a really good job in camp. I thought Van Roten was better than he was against the Lions.
Yes, I concur. But also because Van Roten did well in the center snaps.
And you figured he'd be better at guard, but that's where he's played.
I know. but he was better at center.
No,
I thought.
He did a nice job at center, absolutely. So right now, if Neal's not back and Schmitz is back at center, given Brasillo's experience with Van Roten, I think he might be ahead of Stinney at right guard now. I don't know. I
don't know either.
That's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on moving forward to see where that competition is going to be between Stinney and Van Roten. I think both are on the team. I just don't know, once they get more reps in some games, and Van Roten's only been here a week. They might not be ready to put him into a game situation yet. We'll have to see. And if Van Roten's not going to play, we know Schmitz isn't going to play. If Illuminor and Runyon and Thomas don't play, I mean, Stinney's going to have to. You just don't have enough guards at that point to do it. So
McKeithen will play too.
Yeah. So I think that'll be a good combination.
Kubas,
good spot for those guys to try to perform.
Here's one thing, and I appreciate what you just said a minute ago too about Van Roten, because the one advantage to having Van Roten here is that if he does get slotted in at right guard, because he played with Illuminor last year in Vegas, and they are both Brasillo guys.
Your chemistry should be fine there.
Yeah. That won't take a lot. That's just add water, and those guys know each other. So that won't take you a lot of time. You could probably even make that decision in the week leading up to the Minnesota game, to be frank. I wouldn't want to, but you probably could, John.
Yeah.
So that alleviates some of the chemistry puzzle, if you will, and that may actually give Van Roten a little bit of a leg up, because if that comes into consideration in terms of how much if we had guys playing together, well, the easy way is to just put him at right guard, because that helps.
Yeah, and you could just slot him. I really like the job this front office has done bringing in guys that are backstops for players, right? Theoretically, right now, Paul, if the Giants went into week one, and this is not going to be the case because John Michael Schmitz is not that far away based on everything Brian Daboll has told us.
Right.
If they had to roll into week one and their offensive line from right to left was Illuminor, Stinney, Van Roten, Runyon, Andrew Thomas, wouldn't you feel okay about that? Yeah. I wouldn't be thrilled, but I would be, all right, I think they can hold up. This isn't a situation where we're going into the Seattle game last year,
right,
where you're like, oh my gosh, we have absolutely no chance.
3 practice squad players against Miami?
Well, right. So, even though you're missing 2, frankly, first and second round picks that you expected to be starters,
right,
they've brought in enough guys here where, look, are you give multiple all-pros in that 5-man lineup? No, but I think you have enough experience, veteran players that can hold up in the NFL.
Guys with a legitimate NFL resume.
Yeah. And
not stars,
as starters.
but they're legit.
Correct. Guys, go subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. You can find it on the Giants app, giants.com/podcast, or just search for Giants Huddle on your favorite podcast platform. A lot of good episodes up there right now. What's up there right now, Pearson? We have the next top
O'Hara.
one. Oh, Sean O'Hara's up. That's right. Sean O'Hara sat down with me for about 20 minutes or so, and we broke down everything that happened at those 2 Lions practices.
Oh, good.
Sean was out there. So got Sean's insight on everything you saw at practice. Most of it was talking about what was happening up front, not surprisingly. But we do have a chance to slobber all over how good Malik Neighbors was over the course of the 2 days. We did that too. And Sean
did you have some paper towels ready?
Yeah, we did. And Sean looked ahead to what it is like for a player going into that first preseason game. So go check that on the Giants Huddle podcast. The next 10 up in the Giants 100 is up there too.
Yep.
And I believe, Pearson, I did not look at it, but I was told that was a longer episode. I think they got up to like almost 38
36,
minutes.
37.
Was there debate?
No, but this is the interviews with the actual players. So you have the ones that Bob did.
Right.
With the guys. So, yeah, they've been loosened up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
A little bit longer, which is what I said we were going to do last week, and it has happened.
Well,
so
they had more to say.
About that.
That's good.
Exactly. So go check that out on the Giants Huddle podcast, and then we'll have a rapid reaction after the first preseason game with Paul and Howard. So that'll come your way right after the game on Thursday night. So a lot coming your way in the Giants Huddle podcast. Go check it out. You can also run or walk with Giants legends. The Giants Foundation is hosting a 5K race and kids run presented by Quest on Saturday, September 7th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative t-shirt, and after the race, stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at giants.com/5K. All right, we have a couple people on hold here, Paul. So I want to get to those two calls. Then we will hit the defensive side of that depth chart.
Okay.
But we have a couple people holding. I want to make sure we get to them so they're not staying on hold for another 15 minutes or so. Let's go to Elliot in Puerto Rico. He will lead us off. Hello, Elliot.
Oh, wow. Puerto Rico.
Oh, hi, guys.
What's up?
Long time.
What's going on, Elliot?
Oh, everything's fine. Oh, at least it's better now. It's been a while since my last call because health of my pup.
Well,
rather up last year, but he's doing better now. So.
That is great to hear, Elliot. What do you have for us
sure.
today? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I was hearing the show on Monday, and first of all, I want to thank you, John, for all the information that you did in the huddle or with the two producers from Hard Knocks.
Yeah. I thought that was a fun episode. I really enjoyed talking to him.
A lot of information. It was great. What amazes me is that almost every caller that called with the conspiracy theories about the Hard Knocks, they didn't listen first. The huddle. Why?
Hey, look, Elliot, I made a point. All of the things that fans had kind of said that were crazy on Twitter. At the end of the episode, I threw it at the guys. I'm like, I'm going to throw you guys conspiracy theories. And you shut them down, and they shut them down. It was great.
On Monday's show, there's a lot of people like making crazy things or questions about that. But go listen to the huddle first.
There you go, Elliot. That is a great promotion. Checks in the mail, baby.
Cut that up for a spot, Pearson.
And I want to put all my two dark horses for this year, one on offense, one on defense. And both of them will be rookies. I think that Theo Johnson will be great. Maybe it will take him like 4 or 5 games to get his feet wet. And on defense, I think that Drew Phillips is gonna be one of the better players on defense.
Hey, look, I think you got a better shot with Drew Phillips, Elliot, than Theo Johnson, and I think you're right that if Theo does emerge this year, I think that's something that'll happen a little bit later in the season.
Yeah, Drew Phillips has really impressed a lot of people here in the last month. And, it's one thing to be a smart player. It's another thing to be a physical player. But this guy has confidence and maturity far beyond a lot of rookies, John. I mean, you've talked to him, as I have. He doesn't seem like he's fresh to the league. He's got a much more experienced aura about him.
Yeah, and he looks really good to me. I think his strength right now in that slot spot is the short passes and stuff around the scrimmage and the run game and the screens. I haven't seen him, and maybe this is a product of the Giants playing a lot of zone, so he hasn't had to do this.
To track deep.
Carrying guys down the field in coverage. I haven't seen a ton of that yet. I still want to see that, especially against faster slots, to see how he handles that. But from everything we've seen, instinctual, physical, smart, good awareness, toughness, he checks all those boxes, Elliot.
I wonder how much he's going to beat opposing slot receivers up to also kind of eliminate some of their ability to get out on the release.
Yeah, you're right. That's right.
Maybe that's going to be part of what we see once we get him in real games.
It depends how much press they play. I don't know how much press they're going to
We don't know that yet. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I would trust him to be able to do it.
Yeah, well, he has the mentality for it.
He certainly does.
100% agree with you guys. I know that the tight end position is like, for a rookie, is one of the toughest positions, but I think that Theo is very smart, and maybe it will take him a while, but I think that he will become our first tight end, maybe by the end of the year.
Fair enough. Elliot, anything else?
And a bold prediction.
Yes, what do you got?
Well, I think that I'm always like half full glass, and I hear all the crazy things. That's why I don't go to Twitter that much. But I think that we're going to win the division, winning 11 games.
That's bold.
Yeah,
Elliot,
I think that Philly and Dallas, there's like, this is, I don't have facts, but this is just a gut feeling that there's some kind of turmoil, internal turmoil in both franchises. So I think that it will show up during the season.
Elliot, good call, my friend. Thank you for checking in, man. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. And look, I do, and we've talked about this, and I actually just did an interview with Aaron Schatz, who does the
Outsiders
DVOA. That's defunct now. Football Outsiders no longer exists.
Okay.
He is now with FTN Fantasy, but all his DVOA stuff and all his analytics have moved over to FTN. That huddle's going to be going up, I think, in a couple weeks. And he actually, I said, okay, based on all your metrics and your DVOA metrics, what teams do you think are going to drop or maybe a little overrated in terms of, Vegas puts the over-unders on wins out there and stuff like that? His first answer to me, Philadelphia Eagles. He said even last year when they were 10-1 or 9-1, whatever they were still only 9th or 10th in DVOA. And he said then they absolutely cratered. So he's not quite sure about Philadelphia. He was more of a believer in the Cowboys, but he says Philly's a team that he thinks is going to be a little volatile. And I'll just throw out from Dallas's perspective, while Philly has a lot of talent, and you don't know what's going on with kind of the other stuff down there with the coordinators and the coaching and all that stuff.
Right.
Dallas has just lost a lot of guys. I mean, they had a lot of guys that play significant snaps for them that aren't on the roster anymore. So maybe they can make up for those snaps. Is there a good drafting team? We'll have to wait and see about that. But there's certainly Dallas is not as talented as they have been roster-wise as they were over the last couple of years. I
would agree with that. Now, the whole thing with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio is really the crux of the jigsaw puzzle for the Eagles. I mean, I talked to veteran coaches who are retired about the Eagles' swoon the end of last season. And the consensus was, and we could see it by looking at the tape when they played the Giants, near the end of the year, and you were watching their stuff, and you're like, their defense is looking older and slower and starting to break down.
And they have moved on from some older guys on defense.
They had to.
They're going to the youth movement on
they
that
had
side
to.
too, which is also a risk, by the way, because you don't know what these young guys are going to do.
And then on offense, they looked lost. They just did.
And did you read the ESPN article today?
I did not see it.
So Jeremy Fowler, and I think their Eagles reporter, wrote an article together about how the Sirianni-Jalen Hurts relationship might not be the best.
Wow. Okay.
And how, the gist of the article, Brian Johnson, who was the OC last year that they eventually fired, let go, and Hurts wanted to do things one way. Sirianni wanted to do things a little bit of a different way.
No kidding. Well,
and it was hard for them to get that together.
And they can't get a sense of what Kellen Moore, where he lands right now. They couldn't get a sense.
Well, they hope he's going to be a good go-between and kind of merge what the two guys want to do.
That could be a little sticky.
Correct. So I do think there's some vulnerabilities there. The Giants getting to 11 wins, in my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, I think that's going to be tough.
I agree
Even with the schedule being a little bit easier, I think that's asking a lot.
That's a very high ceiling.
You're almost doubling your number of wins from last year to this year, which is a lot. Again, I hope they can do it. I hope I'm wrong. But do I think 11 wins could win this division this year? I don't think that's impossible.
I was going to go further and say I think 10 might even do it, depending on the tiebreakers.
I think you better win. I think you better, if you only get into 10, you better be ready to win a tiebreaker.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
Yeah.
I did not read that article, but that's certainly very interesting. And here's the one thing for me that I still can't calculate, and we talked about this during the offseason when Barkley signed with Philadelphia. If that line, even though it's not what it was, because obviously Kelsey's gone.
And that was one of the things that Chat said. He thinks people are underrating the loss of Jason Kelsey. That was another thing he said, just for the record.
Well, we're not. We saw Jason Kelsey twice every year. We know what he meant to that line.
Who did we have on the show last year? It was a huddle, I think, Pearson. And they compared Jason Kelsey's pre-snap impact on the Eagles to what Peyton Manning... Oh, no, it was Mike Martindale. When Martindale said that in the press conference, didn't he compare Jason Kelsey's mental approach on offense to Peyton Manning?
He might have. I know he drooled about him.
I remember that.
And so, and we've never underestimated Kelsey, ever, in this room. So, the fact that he's retired, to me, that makes the lines dip very, very cloudy. I just don't know how far they might dip.
And Ken Jurgens might even be as good of a blocker, but all the stuff you lose mentally, that's
the maturity, the leadership, all that stuff.
And Jurgens, this is a second-year Jurgens, right? Yeah. He was a rookie and they played him at guard last year. So
I don't know.
I think, again, I liked him coming out. I thought he was going to be a good player, but again, he's not going to be Jason Kelsey.
Now, if the line performs close to the level that they have in the last several years, if it's just close... Yeah. And I don't know if that's possible, but if it is, and you put a healthy Saquon Barkley behind them, that's going to solve a lot of their offensive slowdowns from last year. A lot.
Yeah, I agree with
a lot. But you got the two big ifs. Is the line going to be still pretty darn good, or is it just going to be okay? And is Saquon Barkley going to be healthy enough to give them the type of season that they're paying for?
And again, I don't want to go too much off of training camp clips on social media because you know how deceiving those can be sometimes. But I saw last week somebody put up 4 straight clips of Tyler Guyton in Dallas going 1-on-1 against Micah Parsons.
Okay.
And he stoned them like 4 straight times.
Did he really?
Like, of course they find the starting left tackle a year after Tyron Smith leaves. Like,
Okay.
are you kidding me? Come on.
You think Parsons was giving him everything he had?
It looked pretty good. Like,
Okay.
Bobby Belt, who covers Dallas for
Okay,
the
I'll
radio
look.
station down there. Look it up. I was pretty impressed by the
Okay.
4 reps. But again, it's just 4 reps over 2 weeks of practice. Don't go nuts. But
You mean like people freak out here over an interception or an
Correct.
incompleted pass?
don't go too far. But as unfortunately we both know, Dallas has a knack for developing
They
these rookie
do.
offensive linemen.
They do.
So I wouldn't be surprised.
What's
but
all the
it would be
cattle-fed
disappointing.
linemen they got down there in Texas?
Well, it also doesn't help, and I think this is a big factor. You know, Duke Manyweather, his offensive line academy, is in Frisco.
Yeah.
So they basically leave the facility. All right, go to Duke. And they get not like I'm only half kidding.
I know.
In the
I
spring,
know.
as we've talked about, you only get what, an hour, a couple hours of field work with these guys, and then drill work
It's
even
so
less
limited.
than that.
So limited.
So if you have the advantage of being able to send them literally across the street to the top offensive line trainer in football, and he can get another 2-3 hours of work in daily, and you're communicating with that guy, and he's teaching the same way you are. You don't think that's going to help?
No doubt.
And Cooper Beebe is a line guy that works with Manyweather too.
He does.
So it's just one of those things where, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right, let's go to Tim in Charleston. He's up next. Hi, Tim.
Hey, John Paul, how you doing?
I have not looked at your email yet, Tim. I'm getting ready for the first radio broadcast. I am way behind, but I will get to it.
Don't
I
worry.
promise.
I wasn't even going to bring it up.
I was preempting you on that, Tim. It's okay.
But I got a compliment / suggestion and then some predictions. You can decide which ones are bold or not. First is I also love the Huddle podcast with the folks from Hard Knocks. That was great. And what was really cool was at the end finding out that the lady was actually a Giants fan, which I guess was a surprise to you too from your reaction.
Yeah, I had no idea that Emily, who was Emily Leitner, who is one of the producers on there, she grew up a huge Giant fan. She said it was a huge thrill for her to be able to do this. And she's like, I was worried that I was going to get jaded, but then I was actually really liked the way the organization functioned, so I was really happy to do it. It was very funny.
And the suggestion I had is that was so good. I was thinking, could you maybe put together a brief huddle, like 10 to 20 minutes, say, range, where you get together and talk to Joe Shane and Brian Dable about their experience with the huddle, kind of as a supplement to the Hard Knocks interview. I think that would be cool. If you could get, I know everyone's busy, but if you could get that time, I think that would be a great follow-up.
All right.
So it's just my little suggestion.
No, I think that's good, Tim, and I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a great idea, so I will go and promote a different podcast. If you do want to hear them talk about it, there actually is a Hard Knocks podcast that is hosted by Peter Schrager, and he actually did interview Brian Dable and Joe Shane on different episodes of that podcast. So if you want to listen to it, go listen to that if other fans are interested.
With Joe Shane yesterday, and I said, "Oh, that was my idea." But anyway, just on the prediction. So I got 4 quick things, and one of them is kind of an if-then, so it's not really a bold prediction.
Okay.
But the first one is our sack differential. Last year was 51. Our sack differential.
Yeah, I have a huddle coming up, Tim, with Warren Sharp, and he went back as far as he could. It was the largest sack differential that he could find in the history of the league.
3 a game exactly. So my prediction, and I don't know how bold it is, but that our sack differential this year will be less than 10 between the number of sacks we get and the number that we allow.
I like that. That's a good one.
We'll allow a number because we're going to be in a passing game, but I also think we'll be playing with more leads. It'll make it a little easier.
I don't know how bold it is, Tim, but I like you attacking that stat with a prediction. So, kudos. I like that.
I'm going to go one further. The Giants will have more sacks defensively than they give up this year.
Ooh, that's bold.
That's bold.
Put that
That's
one down,
bold.
Pearson. Put that one down.
Bold. That's bold.
Because last year they were, minus 40?
Minus
gonna do it.
51 last year.
Oh, yeah, minus 51. Thank you.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say that.
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to go there, and I looked at the number, and I said, no, that's friggin' impossible.
Tim, I can imagine you sitting there looking at the numbers, and you hear, like, Lance's voice in the back of your head. You can't expect the stats to change that much in 1 year.
No, because I
God,
think
if I
that
ever-
last year was such a confluence of events, such a perfect storm, that I think to rationally try to interpret and extrapolate off of those numbers doesn't really hold as much water as it usually would.
I don't know, Pearson, if you can look this up. If you can, great. If you can, I understand. Can you go back and see if you can figure out the last time the Giants had more sacks than they allowed sacks? I'm curious when the last time is that happened. What else you got for me, Tim?
So, well, if I ever start hearing Lance's voice in the back of my head, I'm going to start taking sleeping pills.
Well, actually, you might not have to take sleeping pills.
Now, again, I don't know that this is so bold, but I think
funny.
our three safeties will have 10 picks, a minimum. And then I think our three edge rushers, Burns, Thibodeau, and Ojulari, will have over 25 sacks. So.
Okay, so Thibodeau and Ojulari over 25 sacks combined.
Right.
Wait, with Burns or not including Burns? With Burns. All
Burns,
three of those
Thibodeau,
guys,
Ojulari.
25 plus, and then the safeties only will have at least 10 picks?
Right.
Okay, put those down, Pearson. I think those are pretty bold. I dig that. That's pretty good.
They qualify. They qualify.
All right, cool. So, I listen to 100% of the content and promote it all. I know that today's check's already in the mail to the guy from Puerto Rico, but, that's all right.
Only one check per show, Tim.
That's
I'm
it.
sorry.
That's all right. I'll call back next week. All
I
right,
appreciate it, man. Good stuff, Tim.
We'll
Thanks
give
for
you
the
a
call.
coupon, Tim, for a free handshake when we see you at the stadium.
Free handshake at the stadium.
Tim now has 4 bold predictions.
Okay, that's all
Okay.
right. And again, I'm not sure how bold they are, but I like how he kind of goes outside the box and picking some stats that maybe other people don't think about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Pearson, while we talk about the defensive depth chart, see if you can figure out when the last time is the Giants had more sacks than they had sacks allowed. I'm curious. Here's my bold prediction: 2016.
I'm not sure I understand.
2016 is the last year the Giants would have had more sacks than they had sacks allowed.
That's a really, really good, strong guess.
That's my guess.
I would think that's probably right.
It's possible in 2022. It's possible.
See,
but I don't think they had many sacks in 2022.
No, I don't think so either. I'll go with 16 also because, you see, the thing about 16, not only was it a really, really good defense, but the other thing was Eli really had to rely on the pass game in 16. Rashad Jennings was the lead back. And that was not a very strong running game. Eli really did it on his own, and of course Beckham.
But because
with the quick releases.
But because the defense was so good, they didn't have to try to do a lot on offense.
Right.
Like they were not a high-scoring team in 2016.
No,
but it was a lot of short. To your point, you just said it. A lot of short, quick passes. So I think the sacks were down that year because of the way they were able to operate offensively.
And whether or not that was the last time, I'm pretty sure that probably was the case. Now, if it was the last time, that's the only doubt. And I don't think that we had any other team that we've watched here that could be in that category.
The underrated part of why 2017 went so bad is that the defense fell off a bunch, which then required the offense to do more, and then the offense couldn't do it, and they fell apart.
Yep.
Correct. 201-939-4513. Guys, we have a couple open lines if you want to get in. Over the last 20 or so minutes of the show, feel free. Paul, let's jump over to the defensive side of the depth chart here. That was a good interlude. I'm happy we took some calls there in the middle. Not a ton of surprises here, looking at it to me.
Sorry, I do have an answer.
Oh, what do you got?
Bears 2022. We got 6 sacks. They only had 1 against
Oh,
us.
no, I mean season long, Pearson.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that's my bad. Not game by game.
I was like, there's plenty where they gave up 1 or 2 or 0.
Oh, yeah, no. I just mean season long. The Giants had more sacks than they had sacks allowed.
That'll take a bunch of clicks to find.
Yeah, I think you almost have to do it individually. You could probably find the list of total sacks, and then you have to just line
go
up
every
next
year.
to each other. Yeah,
every year. It'll take a bunch of clicks.
Yeah, if you go to NFL.com and on their team stats, Pearson, they will have sacks and sacks allowed in their defensive and offensive splits. You'll just compare them.
Make it easy. Go right to 2016 first, and then work upwards, because we think 16 is probably a good bet.
That's not a bad way to do it. All right. So on the defensive side of the ball here, Paul, they do have the Giants' nickel defense as the primary formation, which makes sense. You're going to be a nickel most of the time. So you have your two inside guys on as starters, Dexter Lawrence and Rakeem Nunez-Roches Nacho. Not a surprise. The two backups, Jordan Riley behind Dexter Lawrence and Ryder Anderson behind Nacho, which, again, I think if you just looked at playing time last year and history, you'd be, wow, Ryder Anderson, he was, he barely, sometimes he didn't get jerseys last year, but he's done a good job in camp, and he's been their best pass rushing 3 technique. So he's the backup there, and that would be the 3 technique spot, right, with Dexter and nose. DJ Davidson is a 3rd-string nose. Jordan Phillips is a 3rd-string 3 technique. And then Timmy Horn, who I think has actually had a pretty good camp, along with Elijah Chapman and then Casey Rogers as your 4th and 5th stringers.
Yeah, Horn had a pretty good last week, too.
I think Horn's been good, and they've actually used him outside as a big end a little bit, as well as a tackle. So
they have some.
If they like that flex, he might have found a way onto the roster.
And the other day when I chuckled, I forget who was. Were you with me when Elijah Chapman's name came up?
Yeah.
And I chuckle. And I chuckle because he doesn't look the part, right? He's a fire hydrant.
No, if you watch the defensive line drills and watching him stand next to the other guys, it looks like they pulled some high school football player out and had him work out with the pro guys. Just, again, not because of his just this
he's diminutive.
Small.
He's right.
Correct.
He just doesn't look. Now he's thick.
Correct.
Real thick, like a fire hydrant. Think about a lot of times.
I mean, Paul, he's 6 foot, 278 pounds.
Yeah.
How many defensive linemen that play inside are 278?
I mean, just forget about it. All right. So here's the thing. So I chuckled, and I know some people took offense to that. I wasn't chuckling at him. I was chuckling at the look. That when he's standing amongst these behemoth linemen, it just looks kind of funny. But the truth is, boy, does that kid have a motor.
And
he doesn't stop, John.
It reminds me of when in camp, and I said this, I think I said to Pearson. Remember when the Giants would put Nikita Whitlock at defensive tackle?
Yes.
And he had such natural leverage that offensive linemen had trouble dealing with the guy that was so short. They couldn't get their hands on him because he was so low to the ground, and it's kind of the same type of deal we're seeing with Elijah Chapman.
Now, they had to spot Whitlock because, he couldn't give you a whole lot.
Well, he was only 250.
Right. He was very, very undersized.
Chapman's at least 280.
Yes, he is. Thank goodness for that. And with a guy like that, you can only spot him. And to be honest, I think Chapman's going to be a terrific practice squad player. I don't have him on my 53 as it sits today.
I haven't set that up for myself yet.
No.
I'm going to start doing that next week.
But it'd be hard for me to think that they'd show him the door and usher him out of the building. I think they're going to want to keep him around.
Well, I think it was Shane Bowen that said they're going to have trouble cutting down at this defensive line spot.
There's a lot of activity in there. These guys... I had talked way back when in the offseason about I thought Ryder Anderson was a sleeper at 3 technique, and a lot of people rolled their eyes at me.
Oh, did they really?
Oh, yeah.
I agree with you on that one. I was with you on that.
Well, and I think he's proven during camp that he's a legit guy who should be in that rotation.
No, I mean, look, I think Nacho has been a really good all-around player, especially against the run, but in terms of pure pass rush, Ryder Anderson's been the second best defensive tackle after Dexter.
I think so, too. Yeah, you look at these bodies, and look, I know Jordan Phillips has the history with the Bills and Dable and Shane, but, he has been cut 3 different other times in his career, and he has had a lot of injury. And he's like 4 years removed from that 9-sack season that he had.
This is Phillips you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Phillips, I'm sorry.
Jordan Phillips. So I don't know how all of that will come into play and how much does he have left. I don't know the answer to that, John. We're going to have to see in these games. But D.J. Davidson's been here.
He's had some moments, too.
And he's absolutely had some flashes.
Now, I will say this. I thought the Lions did open up some nice-sized holes in some of the run drills against the Giants the last couple of days.
Both days, second-team rush defense, to me, was bruised. It was a problem. And, how do you interpret that? Do you put a lot of value in that? Do you say, okay, we're not game planning, we're not scheming, is that part of why that happened? Or do you say, you know what, those guys weren't physical enough, they didn't do what they were supposed to do to be in those holes? I don't know how the coaches view it.
Neither do I.
Because we were stressed, the coaches stressed to us, Dable in particular said, we don't game plan for these things. Remember, this is a practice. It is a joint practice. We do get an evaluation against a competitor, and we do get an evaluation of a certain type of intensity, skill set, reactions, and instincts, but we still don't game plan. He was stressed. It's still a practice. And so I don't know where they're putting the value there.
Yeah, it's a good question. At the edge, not surprising. Brian Burns on one side, Boogie Basham backs him up, who I also think has had a pretty productive camp. I think he's going to be a real solid
another one of my
guy.
Off-season sleeper guys, but we'll see.
And then Ovi Agufo, and they've actually moved Boogie into the 3 technique spot a little bit too, so he might be a third down pass rush in there.
Did it at Wake Forest.
We have not seen Burns, Thibodeau, or Ojulari move inside at all on third down.
No, we haven't.
If we're going to see that over the next couple of weeks. We'll have to wait and see.
That may be a little card in the back pocket.
Yeah, but I feel like they're going to want to work him in there a little bit before just they slide him in. I
don't know.
Maybe not. We'll see.
Don't know.
And then on the other side, you have Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari behind him, who has practiced every day.
And looked pretty good.
So far this summer.
He's done well.
Correct. Tom and Fox and Benton Whitley, the guys behind them. So, again, I think you know who your top 4 guys are. It's Burns, Thibodeau, Basham, Ojulari. I'd be shocked if all 4 of those guys, Paul, to me, aren't on the final 53.
Right.
And then the question is, do you get a 5th guy in there somewhere? I don't know.
Again, this comes down to the Giants have at least, you think it's fair to say at least 4 different positions where they may have to steal somebody? That's fair?
I have not done that. I have not done that thing yet where I try to get down to 53, so I don't have a great answer for you. To be
I
honest
haven't
with you.
boxed out of 53, but I was up at 3:30 in the morning this past morning. No joke. I had somebody messaging me at 3:30 in the morning. We're messaging back and forth. What are you going to do at receiver?
What other idiot were you messaging at 3:30 in the morning?
Somebody from the West Coast.
I was going to say they had to be at a different time zone.
I was going to say they better be at a different time zone.
They were. And basically what I was contemplating with my friend was, what are you doing at receiver when you got a pros pro like Allen Robinson and a pros pro like Isaiah McKenzie? Both guys would love to sneak onto the 53. But
well, I don't think that's the competition, though, Paul.
Give me a second. Let me follow through.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let me follow through.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because, well, first of all, how many are you keeping? 6?
At most.
Okay, at most. Okay.
And one of them better be a special teams player.
I think Oshevsky, in my mind, I can't cut Oshevsky.
I think
you're thinking it's him against McKenzie, right? I think that's hands down Oshevsky.
I think it's hard. Brian Dable loves him.
Isaiah
McKenzie.
I know he does.
He loves him. You heard him talk about him at
I know he does. I watch too much Oshevsky, and now he's running pass routes, and he catches everything.
No,
have you seen him drop anything yet?
Gunnar has looked very good, and he can give you kick return, he can give you punt return, he can give you punt coverage. I get it. Brian Dable loves him.
I know he does.
Isaiah McKenzie.
All right. So
anyway,
I've kind of, in my mind, as I've tried to, this is why I'm up at 3:30 in the morning.
Well, if you keep both, can you make Gunnar your 7th guy?
I've wrestled with make Gunnar my 5, and now there's one spot, and it's McKenzie or Robinson in the number 6 spot.
So you're already taking Isaiah Hodgins out.
I'm thinking Isaiah Hodgins can't make the team.
Wow. Okay. You have Ivan Robinson that far ahead of Hodgins, huh?
Well, I got Robinson ahead of Hodgins for 2 reasons. Number 1, he is more, I know Hodgins has some size too, but much more of a proven commodity over the years to be not only a pros pro, not that Hodgins isn't, but with his length and his height, his smarts, he's off the chart smart. He is a very good run blocker. And I think that room, that wide receiver
you want a vet
room
in there?
could really use a grandpappy.
Grandpappy?
Okay? I really do.
I'm sure Allen Robinson would love to hear that you just referred to him as a grandpappy.
The dude's a pro's pro. He has seen it all. He's been around forever. Wouldn't you love to have him helping out Robinson and Hyatt and Neighbors?
So you're
not that Slayton doesn't, because he's been around too.
How about your man number 6? Bryce Ford Wheaton.
Well, I love Bryce Ford Wheaton, but I think he can go practice squad because I don't think anyone's going to claim him.
All right. Well,
you see,
he better not have a big preseason game.
I know, but I'm saying now I think he gets through.
Okay.
So I'm banking on him being here as he sneaks through. So my thought was they keep 6. And how did I wrestle? I wrestled with the Olszewski's 5. Who's my 6? And it came down to me, Robinson against McKenzie. Now, here's how I weighed it. All the stuff I just said about Robinson. But he doesn't play specials. Isaiah McKenzie does play specials. He's a pro's pro.
Well, he's a returner. I don't think he's in on coverage units, is he?
No, he's just a return guy.
So if you have Gunnar as a returner, then McKenzie's really not playing specials.
That's why I'm leaning towards Robinson. Because I looked at it and I said, well, what Robinson doesn't have, he doesn't have special teams. But you don't need McKenzie's return ability on specials if you're keeping Gunnar. McKenzie, to me, is more of a similar player to Olszewski, to Robinson, right? And they've already got 2 of those guys, at least on my sheet. Do I need a third guy out of that cookie cutter?
And if you're keeping Tracy, he could be another return guy for you,
He
too.
could also
We got to do first names with Robinsons, by the way.
Yes, you have to. Yeah, you have to do
Allen. Okay, so that's why, John. That's why, John, I wrestle. I'm up at 3:30 in the morning this morning with my friend on the West Coast, and we're wrestling with just the receiver core. What's going to happen with this wide receivers room, and what are the factors that will weigh more heavily with Brian Daboll? And I kept in mind what you said about his love for McKenzie. All I can say is this. He was a big Cole Beasley guy in Buffalo, too. And Cole Beasley wound up getting a hammy or calf, and then wound up gone.
But if he didn't get that hammy or calf, would he have been on the team?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, neither do I.
But I also took that into account and said, it didn't save Cole Beasley. The preseason games are going to be obviously hugely important. I'm leaning right now towards possibly Allen Robinson sneaking in as number 6.
All right. I don't know how we got from the defensive depth chart to wide receivers.
I'm sorry.
But we managed.
It's okay. Really quick.
Yes.
2016 was correct.
Ha!
22,
Nice. There you
22
go.
sacks allowed, 35 for.
Only 22 sacks allowed that
Yeah.
year?
Only 148
Get it
yards.
out, baby. Get it out.
Holy. Wow. Yeah, well, that's on your playoff team.
You know?
Sack avoidance, sacking players. It's important. Real quick before we hit the rest of the defensive depth chart, SciTac and I had this argument on Monday's show.
Okay.
Combined running backs, tight ends. How many do you keep? Since you went through this process, I'm curious.
Well, I've gone through it at the receiver spot. I didn't go through the other spots. It was just enough of a headache just looking at the wide receiver.
3 a.m. tonight, you can.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? I went into this week thinking that max is 4 running backs, and if nobody's dinged up, I might try to go with 3 and sneak Turbo onto practice squad because I don't necessarily believe that he'll get cleaned.
Okay.
You okay with me on that?
I don't think you're keeping 4 running backs. I think you can only keep 3.
Now,
I don't remember the last time the Giants kept 4 running backs.
But if somebody is banged up at the time of the 53, you may have to.
Fine. Then how many?
And that's where I'm waffling.
All right. How about tight ends?
Okay. Tight ends, I'm looking at 3.
I think you have to keep 4. And I said that to SciTac.
I
don't
know.
think you have a guy that can take enough of the snaps as a two-way player. I mean, who are you letting go? If Cager's your receiving tight end, Mannix is your blocking tight end, Theo Johnson's your up-and-coming rookie, and Daniel Bellinger's your all-around guy.
See,
which one of those guys can you go without?
If Cager doesn't do enough for me, he is on the fence.
Well, he's got to get back healthy, obviously.
And right now, I don't know how I feel about where he's at. I'm a little concerned.
So he'd be the guy that would be off for you.
And I hate to say that because I've been a Cager guy since he got here. I wanted him here.
And he has looked good in camp, too.
I know he has. I know he has. But if it comes down to that, I've got to keep the fourth back. And again, this is where you have to waffle on positions, right? Sure. If I got to keep the 4 backs, I can't keep 4 tight ends. If I can afford to only go 3 backs and go Dante Miller to practice squad, now I can consider the 4 tight ends. That also means there's no way in the world I'm keeping the 7th receiver, which some people think you might try to do.
I had 7 between running back and tight ends with 4 tight ends and 3 backs. That's how I had it.
So,
all right.
Send your aspirins to me, by the way, care of the New York Giants, because quite frankly, folks, I do spend up all hours of the night trying to figure this out.
Or you could just send unbranded acetaminophen or ibuprofen too. That works also, so you don't send branded things to people.
Well, aspirin is branded?
That is a brand name, yes.
Aspirin itself is actually branded?
Say it one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
The product again.
I'm sorry. I did not. I thought that was a generic name.
No, I don't think so. I think that's I don't think that's the name of the medication.
Okay.
I could be wrong though. Maybe
I'm wrong. I didn't do it on purpose.
No,
I actually thought it was a generic.
I know you never do this stuff on purpose. Doesn't mean I can't give you stuff for it. All right. Linebackers, Paul. Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden, not surprising. Deontay Johnson, who was kind of split time with McFadden with the 1s behind him, not a surprise. And then I think Carter Coughlin is with the 2s, Matthew Adams and Muasau with the 3s, and then Beavers behind Muasau as the 4th string. I thought was a little surprising to me.
I think Beavers has actually done some really nice things, and he's even gotten as high reps as with the 2s. And I've always been a Beavers guy, and I'm not giving up on him at all. I also believe that that Muasau, for me, looks like more of a project than he does a guy who would be, counted on as part of the depth chart. So I would put Beavers ahead. I think Deontay Johnson had a really good preseason and a summer last year, and he's having another good one. So I'm not surprised that the PR staff listed him as high as they did, as right behind McFadden, and it would not surprise me if he makes the 53.
Okay, so here we go. Aspirin is a generic trademark in many countries.
Yeah,
but there is an aspirin with a capital A that is a registered trademark of Bayer in Germany, Canada, and Mexico, and 80 other countries. So you were kind of half right and half wrong at the same time.
Okay. I'll buy that.
There you go. Just wanted to throw that out there to you.
Does that mean the next time I take one, I have to break it in half?
The Giants don't have an official pain medication, so it's not like we're going to get in trouble for that or anything, so it's okay.
Good.
Did you guys know Kleenex is a company name?
Yes.
I always thought it was just a generic Kleenex tissues.
No. Kleenex is a big.
Okay, now see, both you guys have now violated the rules.
Well, we also do not have a official facial tissue of the Giants. We're not going to get in trouble for that. Yeah, because you have Puffs, right? Like Puffs is one brand, and then you have Kleenex, which is another
That is
brand.
true.
And then you have some of you can get the generic branded too. So.
Yes. I'm glad we're squaring this away.
Do you like the ones with the lotion on them? I'm not a big fan of the lotion ones.
No.
I always find my wife wants to get the ones with the lotion because she feels like they're softer. And I'm like, no, you get the soft ones that don't have the lotion.
Correct.
And those are better.
Oh, I could not agree more, John.
So we're on the same page.
There you go.
All right, let's go to the secondary, which I think, Paul, is going to be one of the things that these preseason games go a long way towards deciding who's going to be on this 53.
Oh, yeah.
Drew Phillips already in there as the starting nickel. Not a surprise given what we've seen. Deontay Banks and Flott, they've been the starters outside. Not a surprise. Mm-hmm. It's still kind of weird seeing Isaiah Simmons listed as a nickel corner, but that's what he is on early down. That's where he's at. Nick McLeod, the third guy. I think Phillips, Simmons, and McLeod are all on this team. I'd be shocked if all of them weren't. Mm-hmm. Behind Banks, you have Trey Hawkins and then David Long. Behind Flott, you have Darnay Holmes and Breon Borders. And those are the guys, Paul. Hawkins, Long, Holmes, Borders, Herndon. Those are the guys that are going to be fighting for those backup cornerback spots.
No question, John. And it may not just be a fight amongst themselves. It could be a fight amongst somebody else who turns up on the waiver wire. Let's not kid ourselves. If they see somebody out there who kind of lights the lamp for them,
or is just a free agent hasn't signed yet,
no question about that either. There could be a late arrival here that unseats one of those guys on the back end, and that would not surprise me at all. I know they're going to want these guys to get as much work in these games as they can get because they truly want to see what they have, but I would not discount somebody else coming in.
And then at safety, Dane Belton, Jason Pinnock, Tyler Nubin, obviously your top three there. And then all four of these next guys, Paul, have all made plays at different times in camp. Elijah Riley is listed with the 2s. Javarius Owens, the second-year safety. He was a late draft pick last year, along with Caleb Hayes with the 3s. And then Alex Johnson, who's had a couple picks as the 4th stringers. And all 4 of those guys, Paul, have made plays at different times in camp. Games will be key for the safety position.
I could not agree with you more about that, too. Alex Johnson had that one day with 2 interceptions in one day, which was obviously a very big thrill for him.
At least one was off a deflection where I kind of just went right to him. But he
still made the play.
Yep.
You know, you could drop it. He didn't.
Yes, you could drop it.
Look, I honestly don't have a handicap on any of those guys right now as to who has the inside track. And you would probably agree.
Yeah.
We need to see the games. Javarius Owens, last year, it was disappointing to me in one regard that we didn't get a chance to see him, because I know when they took him, they felt very strongly that he had tremendous upside. And they were excited to get him as late as they did in the third day.
I liked his athleticism and coverage ability. He had tackling issues in college, which were a problem.
He did. But they were hoping that they could get that together with him.
By the way, we can't see in camp practice.
We cannot.
So I got to see him playing games.
Correct, which is why it was important, and it was disappointing that I didn't get to see him.
Correct.
But here's the flip side to that. Pinnock and McKinney didn't want to come off the field.
That's true, too.
And
right.
when they went 3 safeties, Dane Belton flashed and did good things.
It is true.
So there was never a chance, because of the guys in front of him, for him to play.
You're right. I'm with you.
So we got the same question marks about Owens. Can he take his game to an adequate level with tackling at the NFL level? We still don't know the answer to that. And guess what? In the first couple of weeks of camp, we still don't know the answer.
Speaking of dropping things, Pearson had a rough day yesterday.
Uh-oh.
We were packing up gear for the game yesterday.
What did you break?
And you know that big tall black case that we put a lot of the stuff on? Well, one of the doors, which also has a table attached to it, Pearson dropped it on his toe.
Oh! Wait, I don't see a boot.
No boot.
He was bleeding. He was bleeding through the sneaker.
Was he really?
Yeah.
Just a bruised up toe, bled a little bit.
Well, turf toe has ruined a lot of careers, Pearson. I'm just telling you.
I'm walking
turf
around.
toe has table toe. Has that done anything?
Never heard of table toe.
Just walking around a little slower. I'm fine.
All right.
He's tough. He's playing through pain.
Very good. Very good.
Hurt, not injured.
We will make note of this.
Are you probable or questionable for the game tomorrow?
Probable.
You're probable? Okay.
Are you up and down the sidelines with me tomorrow night?
No, I'll be up top shooting.
Okay.
Okay.
He has it easy tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
you know, try coming down to the field, running end zone to end zone in the middle of the rain.
Paul, nobody wants to be with you on the field.
No, not even Howard.
No, nobody. I said nobody for a reason.
Howard's very scared of me on the field.
He's a big man.
Because you hit people.
Yeah, you hit
well,
people.
he's a big man.
Fans, if you don't understand, when something good happens, or bad, depending on the play, he will just go up behind you, wind up, and whack you in the shoulder or the back. And you don't even know he's there. Do you know how, I mean, you've seen Howard on the show. He's the largest human being on the planet.
Yes.
Paul, I'm not going to say hurts. I think that's maybe a little bit strong. But Howard does not enjoy when Paul whacks him after good or bad plays.
There are times he's actually run from me.
I'm going to tell him to smash you next time.
There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy coming through those headsets and stuff. It just energizes.
You have to make like the like the cartoon where you just bonk on the
right,
top of the head
there you
and you
go.
put you into the ground.
Okay.
I think that's what he needs to do to you.
Anyway.
Giants TV, all our highlights, all that other stuff that we do, content, blah, blah, blah. Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV. Go check it out. It's free, which is the most important thing. And then, of course, you want Giants season tickets. Take your fam to the next level. Giants.com/tickets. Season and single game tickets are now available. A lot of exclusive member benefits. Go to Giants.com/tickets to check it out. Limited inventory, folks. People are excited. And by the way, great job by the fans out of training camp this year. Practices are no longer open to the public, but fans really energized practice out there. So
braving the heat.
Yeah.
Man, we had some real burners out there. Big time.
I think I've looked at the 7-day forecast. Not one day over 85 over the next 7 days. So all this rain that's coming is bringing in a cold front, which is quite nice. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. Thanks for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac. We do have a show tomorrow. Dottino and SciTac live at 1. And then we have the game tomorrow night. Go check out our pregame coverage on WFAN FM. The Yankees are on AM. We will be on FM tomorrow starting at 6 p.m. And then after the game, Jonathan Casillas and I. Paul's other stuff going on. He might pop in and out of the two shows as well. We'll see how it goes. And then, of course, on the call will be Chris Carino and Sean O'Hara. Paul will be on the sideline during the game. So make sure you go check that out. We'll see you tomorrow.